Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Looks like folks are piling in here. Hope you guys are having a good week. It's Monday, so what can you do? I literally just finished recording the podcast with Matt Derrick and got some of his insight into the team and how they're looking at practice, and we'll talk about that. Make sure you check that out here. It should release in the next, hour, right about when we're done with this. So, hope you guys are doing good. See a lot of familiar faces in this. I appreciate that. Nice to see you guys. Lot to talk about. I know you want to talk about Tyreek Hill. I want to start with Mahomes just because Darron Lee kind of caught me by surprise. The fact that he was so surprised. And Darron Lee said something on social media today that really explains exactly how, even though you see something on film like no-look passes, like just some of the things that Patrick Mahomes can do that every quarterback can't, it still catches people off guard. And I think in the tweet or whatever it was, I think Darron Lee even said, "Hey, I thought this was a myth. Stop doing this to me at practice." And I think that tells you just not only how good Patrick Mahomes is, but the fact that he didn't stop at last season. It seems like it did leave a bitter taste in his mouth. Like I said at the time, I think that's a good thing. And it seems that he's carrying through that. So I think it's a good sign. And I think that this next 3-day mark, they're going to start practice tomorrow. And I think this is going to be a sign where we really see just how much he's progressed and how much he's been able to help others progress. Sammy, obviously Mecole Hardman, see what D-Rob has done, that kind of thing, and see where it goes to. This is the last chance, last couple of days before they take a good long rest and get ready for training camp. So, hey, we're going to be in St. Joe before you know it, so be prepared. I saw some of you ask. So today, one of my favorite breweries up in the Northwest, Fremont Brewing, this is their hazy IPA called Head Full of Dynamite. Interesting beer. I'm not a big hazy IPA fan, but I trust Fremont, so I picked one up. And I will say this is probably the best hazy I've had that didn't actually come from New England. So I think there are some breweries up there that you got to get into if that's the style that you like. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm a West Coast IPA guy, so this is a departure for me. But that said, glad to do it. I'll probably do a review on this or one of the other ones for one of my first beer podcasts. I'm going to do on the other RGR channel, the podcast channel. I'll probably start doing a beer podcast here pretty soon. So thanks to all of you that asked. And I do see that there's some general topics that you guys want to talk about. I'll talk about Tyreek Hill. We did a huge show on it yesterday. Chris and I, one-on-one, not a whole lot of extraneous stuff beyond that, because we've said all along, there isn't really much to comment on until we get to the point where either something happens legally or the Chiefs have to make a decision. And that's really why we chose yesterday to come out and say, this is the point, because there's so few practices. Obviously, he's not going to be there. This is decision point. They have 6 weeks till training camp. This is the 10th now. So what is it, 50 days, a little bit more than 6 weeks, but it's close enough. And they're going to be coming into camp. They have to make a decision about what they're doing here fairly soon. So that's going to be an important thing. And without charges, without any authority being able to say that Tyreek Hill did something wrong or illegal, I don't think they can do anything really drastic. I said the day that it happened that if this is true, he's going to get cut, he's going to get banned, and that's going to be the end of it. But none of it's been proven. So that's where it stands. I know there's a lot of innuendo back and forth about Crystal Espinal as well. And really, it comes down to what the investigation finds. Without that, there's also a side thing. That recording, though it was done, without his knowledge or whatever, which isn't legally admissible in most places. I'm not the legal expert. We'll have to assess about that. But making a threat on audio is something that will be dealt with. I do feel like he is going to get suspended by the league for some type of time. Just because there's no charge doesn't mean nothing's going to happen from the league. I don't think he'll be cut at that point, though, because I don't think there's enough there. So that's my take right now on where Tyreek Hill stands. I think we're going to find something out in the next 6 weeks. So stay tuned for it. I think it's coming. That said, the defense is coming along. Matt had some interesting things to say about where they're at, and this is going to be the big week for progression. We're going to see that hopefully. I want to see what Daly does. I want to get my eyes on Daly. I'm looking forward to camp from that aspect. But I think we're going to get some more press this week, so I'll have some more for you. I've worked on a couple of little videos. I hope you guys like the shorter video format, for some of these appearances, so I can really dig into what I'm seeing when they make public statements. I'm going to continue that. I've got a couple of things lined up. I'm going to try to finish some of those this week and get back on a schedule where you get a video or two every week. That said, we'll get into some of the questions until I have those ready. First up, SI Arrowhead 1. Welcome. I don't think I've done one of your questions before. So, true believe that practicing against a better offense will drastically improve the defense. Generally, that's true. I believe that as well. How you practice is how you play. And if you are competing against the best, you're going to get better. I think that we'll see that maybe not this week, but definitely when camp comes. And I'll certainly be paying a lot of attention to the defense like I usually do. Robert Cole, thanks for your donation. I appreciate that. If anybody wants to donate to the channel, help us move things along, see if I ever get a video editor as an assistant, we'll see. You can hit that button at the bottom of the chat with the little $sign in there. If you contribute to us, to me, to this channel, make sure you ask a question. I want to make sure that you're getting something for that donation. So please do. Let's see here. Next question is... Okay, make sure you hit the double questions in the beginning. Helps me find them. I'm having a little trouble right now. Kevin Miller, on the defensive line with Clark and Jones, who do you also see stepping up? I think it's Okafor's job to lose as a starter, but I think that's going to be in the base. When they get to the nickel, he can drop into some coverage, so I think he gives you, in particular, Alex Okafor gives you a little bit more versatility. He may not always be rushing, and so that leaves some room for Breland Speaks, for Emmanuel Ogbah, for somebody else to step up. I think Colin Saunders is eventually going to contribute along the defensive line, but I think it's going to be later in the season. He's got a ways to go. He's going to be in that rotation. And I think Noddy gives you more pass rush than we originally thought. I'm hoping to see that continue, and I'll know more in camp. I'll try to do remote reports for you guys from camp as well. And a little bit better than last year, hopefully, but we'll see what happens. I'll try to do some lives probably as well. Next question. Where'd it go? I just had it. Dang it. Okay. Confluence double hazy. Okay, Chris Casey. I'll give her a shot. I am going to go back to BKS, by the way, when I'm back in town. So anybody who has some ins with Brian or anything, let me know. And I'll let you know how that goes as well. Let's see. Who do you think will start the season as the... Gary Holland, you're going to have to explain that a little bit more. I don't know what you mean by REC. Receiver, starters, and backups? I think the starters, I think Tyreek Hill's going to be suspended to start the season. So I think it's going to end up being, right now, it looks like Watkins, D-Rob, and Mecole Hardman is my guess. There could always be some change there. I think Pringle could come on. If Pringle has a solid camp, he could work into that top 4 for sure, maybe even a 3. I don't know. A rookie starting for this one is, I don't know. That's tough. So we'll find out. Yeah, Bob Money, you clearly aren't paying enough attention. And if you came in here just to be a troll, get out. So he's in timeout. Anyway, yeah, I just don't like that. I don't approve of it. Don't crash this thing because you're a Niners fan, Bob. Okay. Firefighter Farmer. With Williams being featured back, will he get 1,000 yards? On the ground rushing, I think that's a long shot. I don't think anybody's going to do that in Andy's offense anytime soon. But I think combined with his pass catching ability, I think he can push 1,600 yards. I don't think that's out of the question. Again, with the caveat that he stays healthy. And he did well to close the season, but he's never played a full 16-game season. So let's see, that's going to be the thing that might trip him up. But I think he's going to contribute pretty well. My bigger question is, when they have to get the tough yardage, who do they go to? Do they leave him in? Because they did a couple of times, but they went to some other guys as well. And I want to see what happens when Carlos Hyde actually starts practicing. I think that will give us some more information. Okay, good question. Let's see. Sean Ellis, how are you? Oh, thank you for doing what you do. You're stationed at Fort Riley. I appreciate that. I drive through there every time I come back to Kansas City. What do you see as the strengths with Spags of how Spags can use Thornhill? Is he a box safety or a free safety, or is he versatile like Matthews? I think you hit it on the head at the last one. I think he is versatile, but I think the team plans to play him at free. He's got instincts back there. He's got ball skills. He can come down in the box. He has done that from time to time. So I think that's certainly something he's capable of, but they have a lot of other players that could play in the box, and they're not as versatile to play at the back. I don't think that Dan Sorensen belongs in the back of the defense ever. Even in cover 2, when he's only got half the field, I don't like it. Matthew, while he can play free safety, Matthew can do anything. I think he's better as a robber, not necessarily a box safety, but as a robber in that middle intermediate area, crossing routes, being able to take on some tight ends, that kind of thing. So you really need somebody that can stand at the back and be that last line of defense. And once the quarterback commits, go attack the ball. And I think that's what they brought Juan Thornhill in for. So that's really what I think they're going to do with him. I could be wrong. I know Eric Eager thinks he's going to play more in the box because he feels like he did that better in college. I don't think that that's anything that the team has said, but Eric's been right about a couple of things before. So there's always that. And if you missed the interview with Eric Eager, it's on the podcast on Locked On Chiefs. You can go back and check that out. A really interesting listen. Great guy who's really, really deep into it, and a guy at Pro Football Focus that actually played college football. So that makes a difference in my mind. Good question, and thank you. Let's see. Who's next? Jerry, how is Darron Lee coming along, as well as Clark and Colin Saunders? Everything that I've seen says that Lee is running in a mixed grouping. Hitch and Ragland's where they're starting at, shifting into that middle will kind of thing. If Reggie's actually quicker than he was last year, if his knee's 100%, they want to go with him. They want a little beef at the middle is what it looks like. And so that gives you a rotation, and I'm okay with that. Darron Lee doesn't have to be a 3-down player. He's best in a passing situation. So if he's a guy that comes on for Rags, I'm okay with that. I don't think that's a negative on his progression. And clearly, when he's made comments to the public, he's talked about making plays in coverage. So I think that's the road that they're going down. As far as Clark and Saunders, Clark is taking on a leadership role. And I know he talks about practicing against the best and pushing the offensive linemen. I won't say that Eric Fisher is an elite offensive tackle, particularly a left tackle, but he is a good one. And so that gives you a battle between those two that you can come back to day after day after day. And I think that will make them both better. I'm sure he's getting coached up on different techniques. I'm sure Daly is giving him some things that he hasn't done before. I just haven't seen it yet. So I'll have to reserve real definitive opinion on where Frank Clark's at and where Colin Saunders is until I see him in camp. But definitely after that, I'll be happy to give you everything that I notice. When I go to camp, I usually take notes into my phone so that I have them all. I don't have to write them down. I tried writing the first year I went to camp. It didn't work. So I know Sean and some of you other guys that have seen me out there. It's kind of silly. I'm not really conversational enough to be at camp, but it's a good thing for me. Anthony Bowles. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that you like the show. I'll keep doing it that way then. Opinions about releasing Anthony Thomas and the game you're most excited to see. Anthony Thomas kind of shot himself in the foot, and they didn't release him. His contract was up. They just didn't bring him back. It's a little bit different. It's not like he was penalized or punished or anything. They just chose to move on. And so I think that's a little bit different. But the game that I'm most excited to see is the Chargers game. I think the Broncos are going to be a little bit better. I think the Raiders are going to be a little bit better. I think they both drafted decently and they filled some holes. But I think the Chargers are the competition. And quite honestly, like I said on the podcast yesterday, I'm a little tired of all this back and forth about how great they are and they have the best roster in the West. I don't think that's true. I still put the Chiefs roster above them a little bit. And quite honestly, I don't have the Chargers winning until they win. But they do have a good roster. And if they've put some things together they can build upon from last year when they beat the Chiefs, it all comes down to Spags in the corners as far as I'm concerned. I want to see that game. And I want to get it out of the way, and I want to put that conversation to rest. So that's me. Pie Dessert, how are you? I don't think I've answered one of your questions before either. So what is it? Does Tremont Smith have a place on this team? Yes, as a returner, he definitely does. Between Hardman and the UDFA CBs, his skill set is fairly expendable. You can make that argument. There are several guys that have return capabilities on there, but he's a guy that's done it. A lot of question marks outside of that, a lot of rookies. So I'm going to put my money on Tremont Smith to make this team as a returner. I haven't seen enough out of him to think that he can progress as a corner, but a lot of times it clicks a year or two down the road. So we can't count him out of that either, but I think he will be the returner. Justin Trobaugh, sorry, however I'm supposed to do it, let me know. Do you think that they will have a problem with the cap for Jones and Hill? I don't. They have some contracts that'll come off the books. They're getting an expansion every year of the cap number. And quite honestly, the only thing that I see is because of Hill's legal troubles, they're not going to give him a long-term contract with a huge bonus because that's money out the door. So that means that they're going to do more of a year-to-year structure, which is going to be more expensive in terms of cap number. It'll be lower overall, but it'll be more expensive each year's cap number, because that way, if they keep it like that, they can cut them and not hurt themselves too terribly if something else goes wrong. Good question. Okay, Tim Reynolds. No, sorry. FJ Pitts. Any Chris Jones news? No, there isn't any. I don't think he's going to be there for minicamp. I expect him to be in training camp, and I expect he'll be close if he doesn't already have a new contract by training camp. Good question. Do you think they'll have? Oh, I already answered that one. Sorry. Okay, Tim Reynolds. If and when Hill is suspended, who would be the third and fourth receivers, in my opinion? He will be suspended, and the 3 and 4 are going to be Hardman, and right now my money's on Pringle, with Watkins and D-Rob starting. That's the way it's going to be for everything that I can tell so far. Yevgeny, how big of a discount will the Chiefs get on the Hill's new contract? That's a good question. The market is, I mean, he's not radioactive, but he lost himself some money, so that's going to be. It'll be interesting to see. I honestly can't tell you. I don't know. Wallace Stone, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. How will we see the Hill situation panning out? I think he's going to be suspended. I think it's going to be around 4 games, maybe a little bit more. I could see it argued down to 3 with an appeal. I don't know. There are others that feel it's going to be a lot bigger. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I feel about it right now. And then he'll be back. Either way, by the playoff run, by November, you're going to have Tyreek Hill, Hardman, and Watkins ready to go, in my opinion, unless somebody gets hurt. Nathan Roth, does Tano or Okafor get more sacks? Okafor. I don't think Tano's going to – I think he may be able to make some progress, but I don't think that he's going to put up a bunch of stats. He'll be in a heavy rotation about some guys that they're paying. So, Gary Holland, who are the star – oh, I already asked you that. Sorry. Andy Anderson, will Lee do the number 50 justice? It's hard to follow Justin Houston. I'm just going to say that. I still feel like that's a tough pill to swallow. And he's got a long way to go. He had one good year. But it feels to me like everything that I see, that he's refreshed, that he's in a position to make a new persona for himself. Starting from scratch, I think he can make a difference. He's got the athleticism, and I think he can help this team. The question is, will he? But we'll find that out as we go. Let's see. Can Juan play DB? Yeah. He'll start at safety. The interesting thing about him, he can come down and cover receivers if he has to. So you can call him a DB. That's certainly legit. Let's see. Jerry Cole, why is all the other teams hating on us? And why is our division dismissing us like they didn't improve? The nature of social media is all I can tell you. That's pretty much it. People are going to come at you. You know, negativity fosters negativity. So, do you think that Pringle can start over Robinson? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a no-brainer at all. I think he's got athleticism. I don't know if he knows the offense yet. Being out last year on IR kept him out of practices. maybe some meeting rooms, but until you do it and you get that offense and you get those site adjustments, I think D-Rob's going to have the advantage to start this season. But I think Pringle can earn some playing time. So I wouldn't take that as a negative. I think that's a natural progression for a guy in his situation. Eat, drink, be Barry. I like that. Can Speaks reduce down to a 3 tech in the nickel packages and Jones to a 1, or is that a liability against the run? In the nickel package, you're not going to run a 1. You're going to run 2 3s. You might shade to the interior or whatever, shift a little bit, but they're not going to run a 1 technique in the nickel. So I think Speaks can play that 3 tech across from Jones in the nickel. And I think it's going to be an interesting rotation. I think it may be a little bit dependent on matchup because Nadi's still stronger than Breland Speaks, but Breland's quicker. And he is strong. So I think you have some interesting things that you can play with in there. No, I don't have any Chris Jones updates. Do you think Eric Warfield will make a big impact? Eric Warfield hasn't, Tony, I'm not sure who you mean. Eric Warfield hasn't played in like 15 years, if I remember right. Do you mean Eric Murray? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. They've got a lot of DBs in Cleveland. We'll see. What are the 5 O-line starters as of right now from Nathan Roth? Right now, this second, Cam Irving's hurt. So it's Schwartz, LDT, Reeder, Wiley, Andrew, blanked on his first name there, Andrew Wiley, and Fisher. I think Wiley's competing with Irving when Irving gets back, if he can get healthy. It's shoulder injuries. That's tough for an offensive lineman. So we're going to have to monitor that pretty tightly. I think whoever loses that battle is going to be the 6th lineman. They're going to bring in running situations and elsewhere. I think Cam Irving can buy you time at any position. And I think Wiley can help you everywhere but center if he were the swing guy. So those are 2 guys that are going to make the roster. The interesting one to me is going to be McKenzie, but we haven't seen or heard anything about him at that. Let's see. What's your prediction for average points per game when Hardman, Hill, and Watkins and Kelce? 36 or better. That's a lofty goal. And honestly, we don't know if they're going to be all together or not. So I think Hardman's going to have to work himself in. I don't think he's going to be a huge impact right off the bat, 4, 6, 8 weeks, something like that. And then I think he'll start to contribute. He'll have catches here and there, but I don't think it's going to be a solid, it took Tyreek Hill a couple of years to get going too. So remember that part. Yeah. Is the Juan Thornhill injury bad? I didn't hear anything about Juan Thornhill being injured. He missed 1 practice. I don't think it was anything, earth shaking. So I think he's fine. Custis is a long shot, you guys. Custis is not a foregone conclusion, and he's certainly not going to be in the top 4. I think he can make the team. He's fighting with Kemp and Dieter and Pringle and any number of other guys. I've heard that he's doing all right, but I haven't heard that he's breaking any barriers, So I wouldn't put too much money on Custis right away, but I think they paid him enough that they're going to keep him around, at least on the practice squad. How much does Spag's scheme benefit the secondary? That's a great question, Michael Bauer. Thank you for asking it. And here's my big question. I don't know what Spags is going to do yet. They have guys that can play zone in the secondary. Breland, Fuller. Ward's more of an in-your-face, man guy, but it might help him to have his eyes on the quarterback more. So I'm really interested to see, come week 1, how much man do they play? How much zone do they play? That's going to be a really big thing. So I'm going to say it's going to help in general, but that's going to be really the determination for me is how much zone versus how much man do they play. Brad Brenner, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that very much. I don't think I've answered one of your questions before either. So here is yours. Think we'll add a CB. More likely a trade or another team's cut. Man, it's tough. After this week, when the mini camps are done, the teams have a chance to take a little bit of a breath and see what their young guys have done in the last month. If Arizona feels like they've gotten a lot out of their draft picks and Budda Baker and their secondary looks okay, could they be more open to trading Patrick Peterson? Possibly. Same could go for Jenkins in New York. I don't think Xavier Rhodes in the future for anybody but the Vikings because I don't think they built behind him enough. So I think it's really those 2 veterans. Whether that's a trade, then that would be likely pre-camp. Once camp starts, then I think you're waiting basically until a cut down for a veteran, much like we saw with Orlando Scandrick, that kind of thing. I don't think either of those players would be involved in a cut, but that's just me. We'll see what happens. Thank you, and I appreciate the question and all the donations. And that goes for all of you who have donated to the channel. Thank you very much. You know, getting new lighting, getting new software, that's all goes back into the channel. So thank you. Okay. Andy Anderson, can Damien Williams hold the starter position the whole season due to competition? Yes, I do think so. I don't think Damien's shown any sign of having trouble other than will he get dinged up? So that's where I sit right now. Maximo 0101. Are you satisfied with the defense and the big guys and the defensive tackles in particular? Yes, I think they've done a good job and they've made a concerted effort to build up that unit, the front seven, but the defensive tackles in particular. So I think that's a really good sign. I am satisfied. I think they have a good rotation. I think they have a couple guys that can play nose. I think they have a couple guys that are going to be really interesting 3 techniques that can help Jones. I think Jones might get split out a little bit more. And I love the idea of this mush rush that they can put together with tackles and ends flipping and moving around and keeping every quarterback confused. I think some of the tackles can rush from the outside, and I think the outside guys can all rush from a 3 technique. Going into the A gaps, maybe not, but I think that's enough of a variety that I think it's really going to help what Spags is going to do. Let's see here. Who do you think could be cut to save money? It looks like Sorensen's running with the 1/2s, depending on who's in for whatever. And it looks like he's the 3rd safety. If somebody overtakes him, his contract's the biggest one back there outside of Matthews. So it could be him. It could be, I don't know. It looks like one of the linemen's going to go, but I don't think anybody that has a big salary is going to do it. So I can't say it's for money. It's a tough one. The guy that's got the most to prove is Anthony Hitchens, but I don't think anyone's in a position to say that he can go. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Dr. Sanitary, do you like Sorensen? Nope. Do you think he's a good backup? But fans were impatient because he was asked to do too much. He was definitely asked to do too much. He was asked to play coverage that he is not capable of doing. He is built to be a box safety, at most, that robber depth. Playing at the back of the defense, Sutton had him do that he is not very good at. And that's part of it. I don't know Dan Sorensen. I've never met him. Maybe he's a swell guy. I have no idea. But I don't like some of the things that he does on the field. But that is a direct result of what he's asked to do on the field. So that's a fair point. I talked about Ty Hill before, Marcus. Check that out if you just want to rewind. If Hyde's healthy and does well in camp, do you think he could take over the number 2 back on the roster? He could. He's got the experience, and that's the question. I think that's his ceiling. If he is healthy, he could be the backup, primary backup. If he's not, he could be the 3rd, 4th. He could get cut. We just don't know because we haven't seen him. But his veteran presence helps. His experience helps him. So, yeah, I think right now the big question mark is, can he play? And if he can, then he'll be in the mix somewhere behind Damien Williams. Will the safeties or the corners get more picks? Nathan Roth, I think like the safeties both have ball skills that maybe the other guys don't have quite as much of. I'd love to tell you it's going to be a corner, but my money would be on the safeties as a group. Travarius Ward, Trenton Prettyman. How do you feel about Travarius Ward is the question. And I feel like we got a good glimpse of him, and I think he's got a lot of potential, but I don't think he's a starter caliber right yet. I think he needs another year of experience, and if he continues to progress along the path that he was at last season, I think he can make himself into a starter. So that's going to be really the question is, are they giving him enough rope to learn without hurting the team this season? I think that may be what it comes down to. Vincent, how do you feel about 32 will lead the defense? I don't think anybody's ever going to lead like Eric Berry did. But I do think Matthew and Clark are going to become the leaders along with Jones. My question is, Jones is a real jovial guy. I don't know how much he can get somebody's butt and push them. You know what I mean? And I think Clark and Matthew can do that. So I think there's a good balance there. And I think you need a group of guys. A single leader doesn't work. You saw Justin Houston work with Eric Berry and Derrick Johnson and Tom Bahali. It takes a group. So I think they'll grow into it. And I'm interested to see how that all works out. Do you think Andy will have fun with the offensive roster? TZ, I think he will. I don't know what he'll do with it. The tight end thing is going to be a question for me. Gary Holland, what do you think the Chiefs do at CB and tight end too? I think the CBs are set for right now. I think Fields has a chance to make it. I'm not sure about Fenton. You might see a UDFA make the roster over a draft pick. We'll find out. And I think they're still on the lookout. For tight end, I don't know, man. Can it be Blake Bell? I don't know. He's never impressed me that much that he deserves to be the backup, but maybe he will in camp. I don't know. Lovett's intriguing to me. The quarterback aspect, being able to do some things out of the H position that I think that they're going to stress for him. I think that's a little bit different than Kelce. I think it might give him a groove that might help. And he's been real creative with the tight ends over the years too, so I think that helps. Let's see. Thoughts on Hitchens' ability to play the will spot. Is he capable speed-wise? I think it's real borderline. I think his experience and his recognition will help him make up for that speed at will, but I think he belongs in the middle. I don't think he needs to be crossing the entire field. I think that needs to be left up to Lee and Dorian O'Daniel, not necessarily in that order. That's just my thought. Brian Gooch, thanks for your donation. Mahomes stats this year, tad off of last year. I do think it's going to fall off a little bit, and I'll tell you why. I don't think they're going to have to play catch up as bad. I don't think they're going to have to keep pushing to score more points in order to get a win because I think the defense is going to be improved. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. Hopefully, with maturity and with a little bit more relaxation in that relationship, Andy Reid will call a little bit more run, control the ball a little bit more. There are times that I still feel like Andy tries to score just to score, even when you are winning. And I think that's part of it. I think the run game is still an important factor in this league, even in this day. No matter what everybody has to say, that's my opinion. I think it can help you in ways. I think you have to have it, and you have to be able to stop it in the playoffs, period. So we'll see what comes of that. But thanks for your question, and thanks for the donation. I appreciate it. Nathan, will Mahomes' contract look like Wentz? No, it'll look drastically bigger than Wentz's. So, yeah, there's no way around that. If the corners struggle, could you see Thornhill being moved to corner and Watts getting more snaps at free safety? Possible. I think Watts would be the backup at the free spot with Sorensen as the primary backup as the box safety. I think he's got some natural ability, but he's still a big guy. He's not going to come down and play Julian Edelman if that's the kind of thing you're thinking about. But I think in a pinch, he can play some slot receivers. You know, when they play the Jags week one, it's Dede Westbrook that runs out of their slot a lot, I think. I think Thornhill can come down and do that. And I think Thornhill and Matthew together gives you that ability that you can disguise who's going to come down and take that receiver, who's going to play deep, and that kind of thing. I think that helps them a lot too. Eric Streeter, O-line run and pass blocking grade and pass for 2019, better or worse than 18? If Wiley's in the game with LDT, I think they run better in terms. I can't look at grades. You know, PFF has their own process for grades. I look at where guys are tackled. Next Gen Stats will tell you where those runs end. Not just yards per carry, but where do they get tackled? How often is it tackles for loss that are made up for by big runs and that kind of thing? I can't really speak to the grades and how that'll change, but I feel like they'll be able to run for short yardage better, and I think they'll be able to run in between the tackles better if Wiley's starting over Cam Irving. I answered the 1,000-yard thing for Damien Williams a little bit earlier. Not sure who that was. Ian, I talked about Lovett a little bit. Tony Pena. So Cody Thompson doesn't make the team. I really like him too, and he runs good routes, and it sounds like he's catching everything, but he's way, way down there. He's in that Custis, Fenton area. I think he and Custis are the leaders there, but I think they're a little bit behind still of Kemp and Dieter. And so Cody Thompson could be a practice squad candidate in a heartbeat. And he could push for more than that. I really like him as well. I hope that he does get attached to the team in some way. Talked about Lovett. Mike Hall, are there things that Hardman can do skill-wise that Hill can't? Is Hardman further along of where Hill was as a rookie wide receiver? Hardman's farther along in one aspect is that he's played at a much higher level of competition than Tyreek Hill did in college. Moving to West Alabama didn't help Tyreek Hill at all. So the progression might be faster for Mecole Hardman. But no, I can't say in terms of route running that he's farther along than Tyreek Hill was when he was drafted. They're very similar, very raw. Hardman only played 2 years at wide receiver at Georgia. So it's not a lot of bulk there. Let's see. Will Armani Watts get playing time? Nathan, like I said, I think he's the backup at free. So I'm down with that. I think it will. Let's see. Looking for question marks here, you guys. What's the max potential for Ogba? I think Ogba could be a 45% snap guy. And if so, and if he can get better with his hands inside tackles, I like lining him up there in like a 4 technique kind of thing. In the nickel, probably he'll get some rotational snaps. And if he can play better inside, I think that's the way that he can make the biggest difference. I could be wrong, but that's just going off of what I saw him do in Cleveland. So, everything changes with a new defense and a new coaching staff. We'll see what he does. But I think he definitely has room to improve, that he may make something of himself yet. Let's see. Number 2 and 3 QB by the end of the year. Henny's going to be the backup no matter what, unless he gets hurt. Can Shermer push Litton? Possibly. I think he's got the head for it. I think he's got the experience for it. Obviously, he can call upon his dad for work in the offseason. I don't know. But this one particular season, I think it's going to be the same as last. Litton, Henny, Mahomes. But you're definitely going to see a quarterback on the practice squad if they can keep them all, I think. Let's see here. You're more than welcome, Michael. Mo. Oh, I did answer your question. Sorry about that. Yeah, a lot of new faces and over 300 on a Monday in June. Well done, you guys. Spread the word. You guys are doing great at that. How much do you think Dustin Colquitt will play? He might get 25 punts this year. I don't know. I think Dustin Colquitt is going to play more on holding extra points and field goals than he is punting the ball. So good for him. Elongate your career. Doesn't soak it for every snap you can get. Bounty Hunter, is Blake Bell getting to start? I don't think so. That's just my thought. When I see him in camp, I'll give you a better idea. I don't see it, but and Kelce's supposed to be back for camp, so I don't see anybody starting over him if he's healthy, obviously. So that's a pretty easy question. I think Colquitt could get asked to take a reduction. I don't think Colquitt's going to get cut. That's just my thought. We'll see. Will Bucker go 100% on field goals and PATs? I don't think so. He's good. He's not perfect. So no, I'm going to go with the under on that. Next, is Derrick Johnson coaching Maximo? No, he's not currently. I'll be interested to see if he takes an intern spot to be a coach. That's usually the first step in getting back into the league. And Andy said that he's open to it. Okay. Let's see here. Do the Chiefs need a tight end too if Ty Hill is back and they're going to run 3 wide receiver sets? They run 11 personnel an awful lot already. What they do is they take the multiple tight end sets to kind of change that up, to try and get mismatches so that teams just don't run dime on them all day long. Because when you do run dime and you're in 11, it puts a lot of pressure on Travis Kelce having the best matchup. So at that point, you want to run some extra things. But here's the thing. You can run Kelce at tight end. You could put Lovett at H behind the line of scrimmage and have Sherman in the backfield. You can split all those guys out. You can do a number of things with all of them. There's enough versatility in Lovett and Sherman to go with the tight ends that tight end 2 isn't that much of a pressing need, in my opinion. I think there's ways for Andy to scheme around it. And you saw what Sherman can do sometimes. And I know I talk about Sherman a lot, and I see people complain about it on the podcast. Well, get used to it. It's not going away anytime soon. Um, compensatory pick eligible FA contract predictions for next season. Ian Kelly, great question. I'd have to go look them all up again off the top of my head. Houston definitely. I think what they're saying when they took the first look at it a couple weeks ago is that they were looking as it all came out, Nelson, Houston, whatever. It looked like a fourth is what's in the cards. That is dependent on playing time, so we'll just see what comes. Jerry, Wentz got 128. What does Mahomes get? 128 is misleading. He got, what did he get? 32 a year is what it was. I think Mahomes gets close to 40, maybe 38. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. The more important thing is how much is going to be guaranteed. So that's what'll be coming. Any concerns about the O-line expecting a more aggressive defensive front against them? Mike Hall, good question. I'm not concerned. The only thing that I'd be concerned about is injury. They are to the point now that they have to make some hard decisions. They have some young guys that if they're going to keep them, they're losing experience at the backup spots. So that's always a concern. But no, I don't think this team's going to have any trouble with a more aggressive front, blitz front. I think Wiley's got to get better with some of the twists. And right now, Wiley's playing on the left side. That's kind of an adjustment too. Not kind of. Sorry, Andrew. I don't mean to dumb it down. So there's always that. But no, I don't have any worries. Who are your top 5 under the radar guys for the Chiefs right now? Ian, good question. Under the radar guys. James Williams at running back. Pringle's not even under the radar anymore. A guy with an outside chance to make the roster. Fields. Gary Johnson is another one. Love it. A lot of people call him a lock shot. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that's 5, something like that. Let's see here. Good question. Jerry, any thoughts on new guard Allegretti? That's another point. I didn't even mention Allegretti with Irving, Wiley, McKenzie. That's another guy. You just spent a draft pick on him. Looks like he can play some center too. So he's got that interior versatility. Lot of guys. Like I said, if you choose to pass on and get rid of some of the older guys as backups, like in Irving, you're getting younger. You're losing a lot of experience there. So that's something that they have to weigh pretty heavily, in my opinion. Okay, answered that one. Terry Spurman, did Jordy Nelson say he would come out of retirement to play for the Chiefs? I wouldn't pay him much. Rumor is that he did say that he would like to play for Andy and with Mahomes. I think calling him anything besides a possession receiver at this point is a stretch. I don't know that he offers you enough to make it worth signing him to anything more than a veteran minimum. But I think he is a stand-up guy. I think he can help in that room. I think his experience is indispensable. And if you can get him to come out of retirement for a veteran min or something close to that, I think it's worth trying. You know, the knee injury really sealed it for him. If he's had enough time now to recover, maybe in the offseason, maybe a reduced snap count, unlike he had in Oakland, can help him. I don't think it's beyond. So let's see here. I answered about Tyreek earlier there, Christian. Go check that out again. What do you do about the double reverse to Hill and Hardman? I like that. Yeah. That's definitely an option. And you want to talk about wide receiver passes? I won't say wide receiver, but John Lovett, if he makes this roster, I expect him to throw something sometime. As a former quarterback, I think he can outdo Kelce. I think he can outdo what Hill did. And you've seen Andy experiment. I can see some kind of trick play with Mahomes and Lovett both on the field. And maybe he takes a book from Doug's playbook and does something like Philly. I don't know, but I think it's interesting. And I think it's a wrinkle that I'd like to see, to tell you the truth. Eric Streeter, could Cody Thompson make the team on special teams? I don't know. I have to see him cover kicks first. And he'd have to beat out Kemp, who is very good at it. I have Kemp at 6 right now with Dieter just in front of him. So that's a tall order beating out Kemp. Dave Tobe likes him. He does a good job on special teams. It's a tough hill to climb right now at wide receiver. Robert Cole, when are you going to training camp? I'll be there the 3rd weekend of camp. Usually that's when I go. As late as possible. I try not to go too early because things change. People get hurt, that kind of thing. So I'll let you guys know when it's closer. Steven Comstock, would be awesome to see a 7th round pick start. I got to tell you, I disagree. If your position is bad enough that a 7th round draft pick is your starter, then you've done something wrong, especially for a team that's this close to a Super Bowl. You want those guys to be depth. You want them to be small snap counts that can come in and give you some punch. That's what you want on a 7th round draft picks. And I hope you're right. I hope they can do that. Fireman 10 to Juice. I appreciate that. Thank you. Kavari Russell's on a roster somewhere. I don't think he's played in 2 seasons, but hey. Will Xavier Williams be cut if Speaks starts to play inside more? Ian Connis. Good question. I don't think so. Because Speaks can't play a nose, whereas Williams can. Honestly, Noddy and Williams are the only guys who can play nose. Even Colin Saunders, I don't think, is a nose. He's going to be an explosive 3 technique. I don't think you want him inside at the nose. So I think Williams is going to be a staple on that interior. What's a reasonable number of touchdowns for Hardman? 5. He's not going to be leaned on. He's going to be the 3rd option when he does get on the field. And right now, he's got a lot of learning to do. So let's not put too much pressure on Mecole Hardman. He'll get there, but I don't think it's going to be early. So second half of the season, he could put 5 together, much like Chris Conley did to be that 3rd receiver. Let's see here. Michael Donegan, good question. The theme of the draft and the D upgrade equals versatility. I think you're right. And I think it's not necessarily versatility for versatility's sake. It's versatility for the coordinator to be able to disguise what they were doing. Because player after player, even Dan Orlovsky did a thing on the Chiefs playoff team about how they knew what was coming. They didn't disguise anything. Sutton didn't change anything up. And that's a big part of it. That's how a defensive coordinator can affect the game, by changing what he's doing, by disguising what he's doing. So, yeah, I think that is a big theme. Maximo, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. Will Xavier make the roster? Yep, I just said that. Everyone looking to us to be an aerial offense. Should they be worried about the run game as well? I'd love to say yes, but Andy doesn't want to run the ball more than he already has. He wants it to be a change of pace, and he wants guys that can go catch the ball out of the backfield. So I'd love to see it have that punch to the aerial part, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to hold my breath, put it that way. Steven, thanks for your donation. Appreciate it. Young Adam, can you tell this roster will be deep because of the cuts that they will have to be made? There's several other players that could get cut and make other rosters for sure. I agree with you. There will be 3, 4, maybe even more guys that get cut from this Chiefs roster that will make other rosters. Okay. Rob Mulligan, sorry. Does Sherman get more than 1 touchdown this season? I don't know. I'd love to tell you, yeah, but I don't know. I hope that he gets more than what it was at 14 carries. That's what I hope. Scott Mann, what do you think of the D-line will line up and look like as Okafor, Agba, Jones, Clark? No, I don't think Agba's going to be a starter. Agba's going to rotate with Okafor, I think, on that offside opposite Clark. And I think you're going to see Speaks probably come in when Clark does have to take a snap or 2 off, which is not something he does a lot. I think he was a 78% player last year. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what the number was. If Sam is in here from PFF, Sam will know. I think that's what he'll do. I think Speaks will be between that 3 and the edge kind of thing. Same with Agba. But I think Okafor is really going to be there. And so that means Noddy will probably be the starter next to Jones. It could be Williams, but I feel like Noddy gives you a little bit more pass rush. When it comes down to the stretch run in the playoffs, I think Williams will get more snaps. Don't you think that Breland, Fuller, Watts, and Matthew to be top secondary? No. I don't. I think Ward's going to get picked on, Derrick. I think he's going to get picked on a lot. I think Breland is good, but he's vulnerable too. I think Fuller needs to step back up. I think he had a down season. I think it was partly because of the scheme, but I think he's going to end up being the best corner again. Nathan Roth, is Travis Kelce's injury pretty serious? It was surgically repaired. He's moving around. He's been out of a boot for a long time, a month or plus, I think. He's dancing on the field at practice. I think Travis Kelce is going to be just fine. Missing minicamp, I think, is a precaution. Next, Claude Thompson. Is James Williams head and shoulders above Darwin in your eyes? I think it's close. But I think because I think what makes Darwin more special is his running than his receiving. I don't think that he's going to unseat anybody ahead of him. Whereas I think if you want to get matchups, if you want to run split backs, if Damien Williams get hurt, any of those situations, I think James Williams is the better pass catcher. So that's why I think he's right there even with him. He could be even a little bit ahead of him by the time camp is over. But I think for both of them, this camp is going to be about what can you do? Can you take advantage of your opportunities in the preseason to say something? Because if Carlos Hyde is healthy too, then the Chiefs are going to go in the season with Damien Williams, Darrell Williams, and Carlos Hyde, and that's going to be it. If you want to make this team, you got to show something. I feel like both Darwin Thompson and James Williams will. I'm confident in both of them can be players in this league and eventually for this team. Okay, Maximo, if we have Hill and Hardman, how would you use them together? I would stack them a lot. I would motion them both starting from a stack, motion one out, and bring them together, because unless you're going to dedicate like 3.5, 4 defenders to one side of the field, if they're together, that's going to be really tough to take care of. I think you're going to see them dive at the deep ends, especially out of the slot maneuvers, and you're going to see some under type routes, slot streaks with deep ends. I think that's going to be a route combination that's going to be really hard for defenses to combat with those two on the field together. Do you think Sammy makes a big impact this year? It's all about whether Sammy can stay healthy. Sammy made a good impact last year when he was on the field. It's just as a total, it wasn't that much. But yeah, I think he can. I think he's in better shape. I think he feels better. And I think for Sammy in particular, it's about how he feels. He's confident, it seems, more so than other years. He's more demonstrative in when he speaks to the media. And I know that's just speaking to the media, but it goes to show you his mental state, I think. And so, yeah, I think Sammy Watkins might have a career year. Nathan answered that one. Next, Jeff Lever. Favorite players to watch on film, not named Mahomes or Sherman? Good question. Y'all are going to hate this. I like watching Von Miller. Von Miller is a guy that is so extremely good at what he does with his hands and with his bend. He's fun to watch. If he was in red and yellow, red and gold, he is the next coming of Derrick Thomas. He plays his game like him. I like watching that. I like watching Joe Schobert. Schubert? I can't remember his name. The guy that was like an edge guy in college is now a linebacker for Cleveland. I like the way he plays. He's gritty and nasty and kind of a workhorse kind of guy. I like watching him. Luke Kuechly amazes me, and I like linebacker play, so I watch him when the Panthers are playing quite a bit. So there's a couple of guys. Okay, Nick G. Would the Chiefs still have drafted Hardman knowing that Hill would be back? It sounds like it. Sounds like he was their top receiver on their board. And as good as Hill is, because he's a deep threat and because he has that speed, you have a guy that's nearly as fast. Why not have two of them? Now you can't double as easily. You have to dedicate more defenders if you have two guys that can streak the field and get behind your defense. So, that's a nice thing to have. I think I was targeting Paris Campbell for that same reason, because I like that he did underneath work and he could stretch the field. He just wasn't used that way at Ohio State. But Mecole Hardman is the same. He's raw. And so I think maybe in both Brett Veach's and Andy Reid's head, because he's more of a raw player, they can train him up the way they want him a little bit easier than, say, a guy like Paris Campbell. So I think that might have played into it too. It would have if I was in the room and having the discussion. Let's see. Next, M. Merritt. Will we likely see Tremont Smith and Hardman in the return duo? I think that could be true. Certainly to start with. If Hardman starts getting more offensive snaps, I think that will change. Metal Rocker X. Who will have Spags on the ends of the rush? Who will Spags have on the ends for the rush the most? Clark, for sure. And then I think it's either going to be Speaks or Okafor at the outside. Speaks has got to do something if he wants to make it. So, hey, I think that can come on. Could Saunders step in and be the tight end too? Jerry Cole, that's hilarious. But Colin Saunders can catch. So, yeah, hey, you never know. I look forward to seeing, probably not this season as a rookie, but in years in the future, some of the things that Dontari Poe liked to do that Andy tried to experiment with. I think Colin Saunders can do that and more on offense. DJ Hensley, did I hear news on Hill? I didn't hear anything today. I know that the investigation's over, and I talked about that earlier in the video. Timothy Thompson, should the Chiefs sign Jordy Nelson? No, like I said, if you can get him for a vet min, sure, or close there too, sure. Dylan Cruckman, sorry. Does Neiman make the team? I think Neiman's on the edge. There's more talent there with Lee ahead of him now. I think they're going to keep 6 backers is my initial thought. I think when we did it last time, we were talking about 5, but I just don't think that's going to happen. You got to have a primary backup at each linebacker spot, I think. And I think there is a spot there for Neiman. I think he can be the backup Sam. So that's how I feel right now. The question is, are they going to value what Neiman does over what Gary Johnson does? I think that's the big question. Okay, that was Dylan. Okay, Kilgore V2. How effective do you think the running game will be with Williams and co? I think it can be as effective as any in the league because you have breakaway ability, you have pass catching ability with Hyde, and with Darrell Williams, you can run between the tackles. Thompson is intriguing, running everywhere. I think he's better outside. That's just me. I've only seen like one game of his film, so I don't know. And I think James Williams can be an effective pass catcher. He did a ton of it at Washington State. So I think he's a guy that could run routes from a slot receiver spot as well. So I think that could come on. Let's see. Do you see Andy let Sherman run some fullback dives at the goal line? I wish they would. I wish they'd line up Sherman behind Colin Saunders or Chris Jones. I want to see Chris Jones line up at quarterback and run an option with Colin Saunders. How's that for an idea? Okay. Now that we're done dreaming. Dwight Raleigh, glad you made it in. I saw you came in earlier. Do you see the defense being a top 5? No. I'll be happy if they're top 15. I think that's a possibility. Big Duke, is the fact that Barry hasn't been picked up by anyone as telling to you as it is to me? It is. I know Barry said he wants to play again and that he can play again. I don't believe that there's as much faith in that around the league as there is from himself. I'm torn. I want Eric Berry to finish his career on a high note rather than on a limp. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And it will be hard to see Eric Berry as much as it is Justin Houston playing a different uniform. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that may show you that they're not ready to pull the trigger on bringing Eric Berry into our roster, and they're not sure that he can play. Kyle K, thank you for your donation. Appreciate it. Who's going to be the starter first, Hardman or Pringle? Hardman. Also, where are you going to be? Are you going to do a fan meetup? Man, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that, but we probably should. We'll find someplace. I went to Boulevard with a couple of people last year. Maybe we'll do that someplace like Boulevard or somewhere, or Joe's or something like that. I don't know. I'll see what I can put together. If you guys have ideas, shoot them to me in the community tab too. And if you guys don't know about the community tab, there's posts in there, sometimes updates for the channel, and you can go comment in there too. We're almost at an hour, so let me finish some of these up. There's some other donations I must hit, and I'll try to get through these. Let's see. Nathan Altick, could we see a lineup of Clark, Speaks, Okafor, and Agba? In rotation, could be. Definitely like the NASCAR option. Yeah, definitely. And I think Colin Saunders could get in there too because he can stand up and rush. We saw him do that in college. I think there's a lot of things that you could do, and you can move those guys all over the place. And Clark Speaks, Okafor, Agba, and Jones, that's a 5-man rush. You can put anybody anywhere, and I think that's going to be interesting. David Wilkerson, how about no more huddle sets? I think that could be. I don't think it's necessary. And I think they'll be a little reluctant really to push it because I feel like they feel they can execute on every play. So I don't know that they have to put pressure on teams like that. I think they might when it comes to like the Patriots and the Steelers and those kind of things where there's matchups. Leo, no, DeAnthony Thomas is not with the Chiefs any longer. Nathan Roth, will Keenan Allen get shut down by the secondary? I don't know about shut down. The guy always gets 30 or 40 yards, but he's got like 208 yards in 4 contests in the last 2 years and 1 touchdown. I said that on the podcast too. Sorry, don't get me started. But no, I don't think he's going to have an explosive game. And quite honestly, I don't think with that safety duo being better at what they do that he's going to have any big plays. I think I think Mike Williams is going to have a better option of just going up and getting something on a long pass because he's got such a height advantage on what is still a fairly small secondary. Would you be shocked if the Chiefs cut Colquitt and Sorensen to save money? Not shocked. No, they're the 2 candidates, but I don't think it's going to happen unless somebody outplays Dan Sorensen. I think he's the more likely. Big Duke, you're right. That's why Miller wears 58. Tim Thompson, if Patrick Peterson or Hill are both suspended at the same amount of time, would you trade to get Hill out of the AFC and shore up the defensive backs? No, I would not. Tyreek Hill is a game changer. He's the best wide receiver in this league and is an athlete that cannot be compared to. So no, I would not trade him. James Miller, thanks. I appreciate that. Aaron Morrow, Wilkerson. I was wondering that too. Will you be seeing any no huddle? I think there'll be some, not a ton though. And that's David Wilkerson's donation. Thank you. And his question, what about more no huddle offense? I think that it could certainly work. I think what they want to be is more multiple than fast. I think in situations you will see that happen though, especially when they find something they want to exploit and they get that matchup, they're going to want to keep that position group on the field. And then I think you can see them speed up. And I think Mahomes going into the second year as a starter is a lot more likely to be able to just go. So I think that's better. Stasia, thanks for joining. Not many ladies in the chat. So thanks for your question and your donation. How many games will he be suspended for? My guess is 4. I've heard more than that by some folks who have strong opinions and cover the league. I think they're going off of a bias of some other things. Without a charge, I feel like it's going to be 4. It could be anywhere, it could be 8. I mean, they could treat it as a second offense and make it, a whole year. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be 4 though. It's just my opinion, but thanks for asking the question. Metal Rocker, do you think that they'll have the backup fullback behind Anthony Sherman? I don't think they'll keep 2 fullbacks. I think in a pinch they could use a guy like Lovett as a fullback as well. Honestly, I'd love to see somebody like Colin Saunders get some snaps at a fullback too. I just love that power obliterating a defensive line. So yeah. Anyway, do you think the linebackers are going to be set up? Do you prefer who do you prefer starting? I think Rags are going to start at least the beginning of the season in the base defense. I don't think they're going to ask him to play a whole lot of nickel. So I think it's going to be, at least to begin with, they're going to try to run Wilson, Rags, and Hitchens. And if Hitchens gets exploited at the will, I think they'll move him inside in the middle, and they'll let either Lee or Dorian O'Daniel come play the will. And I like both of those. I think Dorian O'Daniel, that's his long-term spot, is at the will linebacker. Let's see. Jason Beard. Anyone concerned about Perfect and Incognito? Yeah, I talked about that on the podcast yesterday. 2 of the dirtiest players, both in Oakland now. So something to understand going into Raider week. But other than that, I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. DJ Hensley, do you think anyone can take Damien Williams' starting job? No, I don't. I think Damien Williams is your starter unless he gets hurt. How many yards and touchdowns do you think Sammy and Hardman will have? I think they're going to be, I think Sammy's going to be around somewhere between 900. He could break 1,000 depending on Hill's suspension. I think Hardman's going to be in that 500 to 600 range. I think Sammy could go for 8 to 9 if he stays healthy, touchdown wise, and I think Hardman could be in that 5 to 6 range. Oh, Jody McKay. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Doesn't show very well until I step back. Blackberry Smoke. If you like Southern rock country kind of music, Charlie and the boys are incredible. I had the good fortune to hang out with them a couple years ago when they were still not super huge. So they would actually hang out after gigs. Great guys. Check out Blackberry Smoke if you like that kind of music. Binder Believer's back. How are you? It's been a while. Thanks for the donation and the question. I will answer it right now. Tano gets no love. Okay, fair enough. I don't give him a whole lot of love. Am I the only one who has hope for this guy? No, I have hope. I just got to see it. I personally can't tell if Tano Passanio has failed to develop because of him or because of Sutton and Sutton's scheme and Sutton's staff. I just don't know. So I am going into this question as though it's a blank slate. He's going back to his former scheme in college. I think if Tano Passanio is going to make it in this league, it's going to happen this year. I'm very interested to see, and I'm glad to see that there's somebody in his corner too. So, KCK, thanks for the donation. I missed that notification. I'm sorry about that. Wondering what the AFC, NFC chip predictions and Super Bowl prediction. Wow, I haven't gotten there. The AFC is pretty easy. Chiefs versus Patriots. And I'm going to be an optimist and say that the Chiefs beat them this time. The Chiefs do go to the Super Bowl. On the NFC side, I feel like the Saints are just too good to ignore. So I'm going to say it's Saints-Rams again, and the Saints make the Super Bowl, and it's Chiefs-New Orleans Super Bowl. Ask me again in 6 weeks when camp starts and the first injury shows up, and I'll probably tell you something completely different. But hey, we'll see. Good question. Answered those. Aaron's got another one. Could no huddle end up putting the defense on the field way too quick? That's the problem with it. Yeah. Inexperienced wide receivers if Hill's out, especially if Watkins gets hurt for any reason or misses time. You're talking about a lot of young guys trying to catch bullets from Pat Mahomes. That can lead to incompletions that a no huddle could lead to the defense being put a lot of snaps and a lot of pressure on. So that is the concern. Sam Mansker. News came out that neither Hill or his fiance broke his child's arm and he fell and broke it. Does that change anything? No, I mean, that's status quo right now, right? And I said the day that it happened, unless there was a charge, if there was a charge, he would get cut and probably banned. If there's no charge, it doesn't mean he didn't do anything, but it means that he didn't do it so blatantly that they can prove it. So without a charge, I don't think he's going to be cut. I think the NFL is going to discipline him for a while for threatening the girlfriend on audio and honestly just embarrassing the league. You guys need to check out Terez Paylor's Yahoo podcast. He talks about that a bit. And I think Terez has his thumb on the pulse of what's most likely to happen with this. So and we're trying to get Terez back on the show. You know, we just been crossing paths and we haven't been able to actually figure it out. We'll get Terez back on here on the Locked On podcast here soon. Okay, KC Fire. I heard the supposed source was not too happy with the way the team threatened him. Do you think the relationship is fractured? I don't. I think if the relationship was fractured with Tyreek Hill, he would be a free agent right now. Do you think that there will be anything to do at the line, draw other defenses off sides? I think Mahomes can start working on some of those little details. I don't think he got many offsides jumps last year, but that's definitely something he can look at. Nathan Roth, how many interceptions? I think he's going to be in the same range. I can't remember what it was last year, but I'm going to say around 10, 12, maybe as much as 14 if he takes a few chances. But there's plenty to it. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns too. I'm thinking 40 plus, but I'll refine my estimates and give them to you guys in a few weeks. So with that said, we're 10 minutes over. I didn't mean to go this long. Thanks for hanging in this long, over 200 people. Thank you very much for doing all this. I'll have more videos for you in the other shorter pre-recorded style. If you have something you want me to cover, make sure you hit the community tab, put comments in the posts. Thank you for all of your time. Check out the podcast. I have new gear coming if you guys want hats and that kind of stuff. I'm working on that with a new vendor. Yeah, and I'll be back. Talk to you guys next Monday night. Thanks. Y'all have a good one.